Welcome to HPR, broadcasting live today from the Strick residence. I'm Greg Giovanoli,
I'm Eric Zio.
And I'm Dylan Scheck.
and our topic today is the environmental movement and how it's remembered. So, what do you guys think about this topic?
I feel like it's kind of died down recently. What do you think, Dylan?
Yeah, I mean, this really reminds me of what Mr. Emmer said before.
It's so interesting that you're bringing it to my attention. Made me think, yeah, you're right. Whatever happened to that? It's like it's drifted out of everybody's screen of visibility. It's just odd. I don't know how to explain it though.
Honestly, before we started this project and before we came up with the idea of Earth Day, I actually completely forgot that we had an Earth Day in the country and even in our community.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of the general consensus of the student body. Everyone knows about it. It's kind of a big thing, but it's sort of grown more into obscurity than it was in the past.
And I guess some of the causes we can contribute to this are the fact that there's not enough emphasis placed on to be eco-friendly or to do something environmentally friendly.
Yeah, I mean, the administration doesn't actually have anything against people who don't recycle or anything. They're not going to put you in detention or anything like that.
Right, and we were talking to Mr. Ochino about it, and he has the same kind of view on this.
To answer your question, I think more can be done, more oversight for those people who don't. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of hard to do. So, you're in detention. You didn't throw your plastic in the right,
Yeah, you can't do it, yeah.
Okay. We can, but you could. I mean, think about that. Detention. So you have, you have 150 kids sitting in detention every day. All right, and then you're not going to catch everybody because then it becomes unfair.
So as you can see, that was one of Joe's more candid moments, but I think the underlying meaning still remains the same. There's a certain ideology behind recycling in the community, and certain people follow it, certain people don't. But what do you think about this, Eric?
Yeah, I feel like everyone knows that recycling is a good thing because the environmental movement has been going on for years now, so everyone knows that it's not good to throw plastic in the trash can, but, people get lazy, and, that's just what goes on.
And from what I've heard, this is really reflected in the student view.
As an actual movement.
Do people actually tell you to recycle?
No.
There's no emphasis for that in school?
Not at all.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense, and that's a valid opinion, but that really isn't what Mr. Ochino said. So we have two conflicting points of view between the teachers and between the students.
Yeah, teachers are saying, oh, we tell everyone to recycle, but no one does it because they're all lazy and they don't want to do it. But then the students are saying the teachers never said anything about it.
I think what becomes lax is I think some people don't take recycling seriously. We'll just use that as an example. Mm-hmm. Things are put in place. Our policies are straightforward, and we try our best to make sure that we're adhering to all the things that we're supposed to be doing.
As you can see, it's kind of like a war of words between the students and the administration. No one really knows who's in the right and who's in the wrong, but everyone knows that there's kind of a truth in between that everyone's striving for.
Yeah, and everyone knows this truth. The question, I think, is do they know it because people around them are doing it, like peer pressure kind of thing, or do they know it because they know deep down inside it's right? But either way, the environmental movement had to have some sort of effect on our modern psyche of this.
Yeah, going off of that, I know that when we interviewed Mr. Ochino and we also interviewed a janitor, they both told us that when students recycle and throw out trash, all this stuff goes in the same bin and they leave it up to the waste treatment plants to sort out this stuff. So in that case, why tell us to recycle? Is it to make the students feel conscientious and make them feel like they're being environmentally friendly, or for some other reason?
Right, and just going off of that, I feel like the word around the student body is every student knows that this is happening. It's been a constant conversation topic at my lunch table, and I really think that the students aren't really sure who to trust. And
so to sum up then, we could say that everyone knows what they have to do because they've been taught that way. The environmental movement has taught them since childhood that it's a bad thing to pollute, and it's a bad thing not to recycle. But why has it kind of died down then?
Right. What I think is that the environmental movement has kind of burned out or suffocated itself due to its own success. Since the 70s, when it first started coming on, it's been wildly successful. But since then, it's sort of become the norm, which has sort of been counterproductive to the goal in the first place.
Yeah, so honestly, are you saying that the environmental movement was a victim of its own success?
Yeah, I'd say that.
Yeah, although there's no tangible evidence to fully say that there's any more environmental pollution, I'd say there's still some invisible evidence to support that.
Yeah, like these days, there's no visible pollution. Like, you don't go outside and you put on like a gas mask or something, like in China or something. Like, these days, everything with pollution is with CO2 and stuff that we can't see. In the old days, in like the 1970s, when Earth Day first came out, I was reading the May 1971 fling, and it was saying that they put fish in the Saddle River, like the USR Saddle River, and they died. And that's not something you can ignore easily.
Right, and I was reading an earlier issue of the Fling, the February 1971 issue, and I also saw an article that was specifically geared towards polluters in the community. So you sort of see like this vigorous onslaught of propaganda almost against the polluters and those doing environmental wrongs in the community when the environmental movement first
That
started.
time in the 70s, there were a lot of other problems that students were seriously protesting, such as Vietnam, civil rights, stuff like that. So it makes sense that that's when Earth Day first started and when the environmental movement really was at its peak.
Right, and a big part of how we remember it are the people who started it. Raise your hand if you know who Gaylord Nelson is. If your hand was raised, come down to the station. We have a free Corvette for.
Okay, so I have a story to share with all our viewers out there. The date is September 20th, 1969, and a man by the name of Gaylord Nelson, who was a Democratic senator from Wisconsin, shows up in Seattle and says in a speech, "I am convinced that the same concern the youth of this nation took in changing this nation's priorities on the war in Vietnam and on civil rights can be shown for the problem of the environment. That is why I plan to see to it that a national teach-in is held." So this man, Gaylord Nelson, had been for a while now, ever since 1963, been pushing for environmental reform, and it wasn't until 1970, on April 22nd, that something was done about it, when a national holiday was established, Earth Day, in which 12,000 events across the country took place, and more than 20 million citizens of the United States took part in.
Okay, now, look around you. Northern Highlands, 2013. Who knows when Earth Day is? Dylan just said it. Do you guys even remember now?
I don't even remember, to be honest. But I feel like what Eric said remains true throughout the school community. In that not a lot of people care that much about Earth Day. Being a member of the community myself, I know until I started this project,
And I think it's really interesting is that everyone actually knows what Earth Day is, though. It's not like people don't know what it is, they just don't know when it is. Which means that they've known about it and they've done things in the past, but now it's sort of become obscure.
Going off of the obscurity that Earth Day has kind of become, we definitely didn't view Earth Day as this irrelevant holiday back when it was first created. Some evidence of this are right after Earth Day, the acts that are passed. Dylan, what are some of those acts?
Yeah, Earth Day had its consequences. It led to the Clean Air Act of 1970, the Clean Water Act of 1972, and the Endangered Species Act of 1973. And just 8 months after the event, actually, it led to the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency.
Right, so it definitely wasn't an obscure holiday when it first came out in 1970. It's just sort of grown to this irrelevant thing that people know about.
Yeah, going back to the thing where it died because of its success, sorry. It makes sense because things got passed. So I feel like those people who were protesting in the streets are like, oh, we got our stuff done, so let's go home now.
Right.
You look at today compared to back then, and you have so many other things to worry about. You have like the economic crisis, you got things like terrorism, Bin Laden, you gotta kill Bin Laden, you know, and then you got the war in Iraq and stuff like that. So who has time to worry about the environment? Like, if you look at World War II and now, both of those things, we were preoccupied with something other than the environment. And in the 1970s, it was like the perfect storm. You didn't have the war to end all wars kind of thing.
Right, and as Zoo was saying, it's sort of like also it's almost like an American dilemma. You want to worry about the environment, but at the same time, you don't have all the resources to economic resources to put towards funding that effort for environmental consciousness.
Yeah, so you look at college campuses today, unlike in the 70s, kids aren't up in arms protesting things, or even if they are, if you look at Occupy Wall Street, they're going for jobs. They're not going for, oh, let's save the environment kind of thing. They're looking for jobs, and that's really what today is, jobs.
So I think you guys and society as a whole are looking at this issue from a short-term perspective rather than a long-term investment, seeing as if we invested in more environmentally friendly options such as solar panels or something, this would save us a lot more money in the long run. And I feel like money ties into this a lot.
Yeah,
So-
there's two ends of the economic spectrum, and what me and Greg were talking about before is really the short-term end that everyone's focusing on. But there actually is a long-term thing, and I feel that by looking at the short-term things, we're going to lead up to the exact same things that led up to the first 1970s environmental movement, which is like things that get so visible that you can't ignore them.
Right, and I feel like the short-term, long-term perspective almost plays into how we remember it and how it's like viewed in history as a whole. You might think that the environmental movement in the 60s, 70s was just full of hippies, tree huggers, but in reality that was pretty much a small niche. The environmental movement back then was actually comparable to, say, Occupy Wall Street now.
Yeah, it's a bunch of like-minded people who got together. They're not hippies or anything like that. But that's kind of what we view it as now because we're not thinking about the environmental movement, so we kind of cast them off as hippies and stuff like that. We were interviewing Mr. Emra. He actually brought up that Highlands kids, not like random college kids, were really into the environmental movement. They would recycle every day after school.
Because I can remember, you'd see these kids every day after school going around and they had fun doing it and all that. But
School, rolled the clip.
So, when looking back on the environmental movement, there are two perspectives that you can take. One is looking through the lens of those who originated the environmental movement and had an idea in their heads of what they wanted to get out of it. And the other is how us as a community, as a society, view it. Originally, those who started Earth Day, those who tried to get environmental bills passed, wanted a long-term solution and were just in a certain mindset that they wanted to change the world and make their mark on the world. Those, how we view it today, just view it more as a social norm. So depending on how you interpret this, there are multiple different ways you can view the environmental movement.
Yeah, it's sort of become habituated, whereas it was a fresh thing in the 70s. It was fresh thinking, and now, because it's become so prevalent in society, we look back and we say, those people were perfect. Those people wanted to make a change because they were perfect. But in honesty, they were really just people just like us who were responding to a problem and they wanted to fix it.
And this, my friends, is the forgotten truth.
America.